Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
Welcome aboard, welcome to another edition of the Pan-African Pyramid Show here at Fairway Hotel. The speaker is Andrew Irumba Katusabe, and this is your true Pan-African Parliament that sits here every Friday from 5 to 8 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be 59 years since Africa was liberated. So Africa Day is actually formerly African Freedom Day and African Liberation Day. It is the annual commemoration of the foundation of the Organization of African Union, and it happened in 1963. It's celebrated in various countries on the African continent as well as around the world. The organization was transformed into the African Union on 9th July 2002 in Durban, South Africa, but the holiday continues to be celebrated on 25th May of every year. The first Congress of the Independent African States was held actually in Accra, Ghana on 15th April 1958. It was actually convened by the Prime Minister of Ghana, by then Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and comprised representatives from Egypt, then a constituent part of the United Arab Republic, Ethiopia, Liberia, Libya, Morocco, Sudan, Tunisia, the Union of the Peoples of Cameroon, and of the host country, Ghana. The Union of South Africa was not invited actually. The conference showcased progress of liberation movements on the African continent, in addition to symbolizing the determination of the people of Africa to free themselves from foreign domination and exploitation. Although the Pan-African Congress had been working towards similar goals since its foundation in 1900, this was the first time such a meeting had taken place on African soils. The conference called for founding of an African Freedom Day, a day to mark each year the onward progress of the liberation movement and to symbolize the determination of the people of Africa to free themselves from foreign domination and exploitation. Ladies and gentlemen, the conference was notable in that it laid the basis for the subsequent meetings of African heads of state and government during the Casablanca Group and the Monrovia Group era, until the formation of the Organization of African Unity, that's OAU, in 1963. 5 years later, on 25th May 1963, the representatives of the 30 African nations met in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, hosted by Emperor Haile Selassie. By then, more than 2/3 of the continent had actually achieved independence, mostly from imperial European states. At this meeting, the Organization of African Unity was founded, with the initial aim to encourage the decolonization of Angola and Mozambique, South Africa, and Southern Rhodesia, what we call Zimbabwe today. The organization pledged to support the work conducted by freedom fighters and remove military access to colonial nations. A charter was actually set out which sought to improve the living standards across member states. Selassie exclaimed, "May this convention of union last 1,000 years." The charter was signed by all attendees on 26 May, with the exception of Morocco. At that meeting, Africa Freedom Day was renamed Africa Liberation Day. In 2002, the OAU was replaced by the African Union, that is AU. However, the renowned celebration of Africa Day continued to be celebrated on 25th May in respect to the formation of the OAU. Ladies and gentlemen, 59 years later, as Africa attained its total liberation socially, economically, and politically, as envisaged by the forefathers in our struggle, if your answer is no, what role can the African youth play from today to realize our forefathers' dream about a free Africa? So the argument is going to be, are we free or not? If we are free, tell us the parameters against which you base your argument that actually we are free. If we are not free, Let us know why you think you're not free, and tell us what exactly Africa needs to do, especially you, the African youth, because there is no struggle that can be championed without the youth. Even the freedom we have today, the little freedom that we have actually enjoyed in Africa, those people, when they were your age, they left the comfort zones and went and fought for their freedom. One vivid example, remember, what I've read, I was not there, at least I've read in the history books, is that Kalekez, the father of Kalekez, walked from Nakawa here, and by then it was a bush. He walked up to Sudan. When he reached Gulu, he found another comrade like him, he gave him a bicycle. That bicycle was not new like the bicycle you read today, or even a motorcycle, it was a bicycle, an old one. He rode that bicycle up to Sudan. It is in Sudan that his colleague now from Egypt, Abdel Nasser, sent him a chopper, picked him from Sudan, went to Ethiopia, and they started the struggle to liberate Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, you as youth today in Africa, how far have you done or have you committed your energies in ensuring a free Africa, socially, economically, politically? And I will begin with Professor David Kasuti from Meroe. He is a senior lecturer and administrator at Kyambogo University. Give him a round of applause. Professor Kasuti.
Years later, what more can African youth play to ensure total liberation of Africa? That is the basis of our debate this evening. You see, if the youths are to be engaged in liberating Africa totally, it's important that the youth understand what a liberated Africa looks like. It is important that the youths know what is the objectives of Africa. How will Africa be? How will it be projected after it has been liberated? How will it project itself as in international forum? I think this is what the youth must know. But back to where I started. Was Africa liberated? I don't think Africa was liberated. Africa was just released piecemeal by the colonialists, because when we fought for independence, those who were struggled and in quotes achieved independence actually were given, and the conditions were there. I remember when they were giving up on the Independence Day, the commentator, the British commentator, said, Uganda today is free, but not so free, because it will continue being part of the Commonwealth. And then added, on its throne. I know it has chosen it by its throne. I don't think we really had a choice, because the Commonwealth was a continuation of influence by Europe, by Britain, over Uganda and all its colonies that it had. And I have to say that colonialism was ended, but freedom was not achieved. I don't need to build your house to colonize your mind. All I need is to be somewhere and tell you what to do. And if you don't do it, I have sanctions for you. So your freedom is limited. So yes, colonialism was ended, but freedom was not achieved. Now, what can the youth? As I said, youth must know what a liberated Africa looks like. Is it having the freedom to say what you want? You see, our imperial powers are very good. They give you sweets to eat as they are eating the real thing. So we are given the freedom to say what we want. And these are our leaders. Go to Angenois. Freedom for the homosexuals. They are very good at that. But freedom to trade fairly is not fair. That's why that's freedom. Real freedom is when we are trading. Real freedom is when we are making our own decisions. But our decisions are sanctioned. After even our elections, they supervise our elections. In fact, they have really controlled us so much so that whenever there are elections, I hear many people say, are the Europeans coming to supervise us? How about the Americans? If they don't come, you see, even the British have not come. So this election is a sham. It's a sham. We ourselves. They have decolonized, they have colonized us, influenced us, and they sort of corrupted us so much that we don't even believe in ourselves. That state of mind is called external locus of identity syndrome. That means that our identity is external. We don't see ourselves, but we see ourselves through other people. So if we have to have an election which is legitimate, America and Europe must endorse it. Of course we don't endorse theirs, and it would be a shame if we did. That's the one thing. So we are not free, but we are free in the areas that don't matter. Freedom to have children, freedom to have houses, doesn't matter with the quality. Freedom to go to school and be indoctrinated, you know. So now I will read something from my presentation, not all. Among other things, liberation entails the emancipation of an individual or a community. It entails the setting free of a given community from dependence, foreign influence, controlled by a given individual or community. You know, so you are liberated if you are independent, if nobody is influencing you without your consent, or if nobody is influencing you or controlling you, and you are not accountable to anybody by force. It should be by consent. So the African youth can play its role by ensuring total liberation of Africa, by ending Africa's dependence on foreign ideas, foreign aid, and bigotry. Bigotry means somebody telling you whatever you say doesn't matter. What he says is what matters. Somebody doesn't trust, doesn't respect your opinion. His opinion must be respected by you. That's bigotry. So the youth of Africa must fight these things, these aspects of existence and independence. But Mr. Speaker, previously we had a topic on, in fact for the last 3 weeks we talked about the youth. We define the youth as going up to age 25. But in Uganda, we have youths of 30, we have youths of 35, we have youths of 40. Actually, somebody suggested you can keep the youth at 70. That means we never want to leave a certain stage of development. It's called neoteny. You grow, but you remain with your childish characteristics. It is this called social neoteny. You know? In Uganda, we don't understand what the youth is. I said the other time that being a youth is biological. Of course, it has a social element, most important biological. That's the time for preparing a person adulthood. Adults, if you are 25, you are an adult. But in Uganda, even our law, actually there's somebody that our law says that the youth must begin at 30. That's wrong. Of course, even these laws are wrong because they are made by people who are ignorant. If a set of ignorant people sit and make laws, they will be wrong. But then there are laws which must be respected. That's constitutionalism. Constitutionalism dictates that you respect a law, however stupid it is, however wrong it is. In the case of Uganda, calling a 30-year person a youth is wrong. That is an adult and is accountable to this country as an individual. So when I talk of the youth, there is a political youth, that is the one who doesn't end, and there is a real youth, that's the one who goes up to the age of 25. In fact, I want Africa to unite by reorganizing the components of Africa. If you If you put bricks, if you put bricks in a bag just like that, without arranging them, they're not fit. In a short time, the bag is full. But if you still take your time and arrange the big ones on the bottom, the ones, and then the smaller ones on top, you will have a lot of them in one bag, and you carry them very easily. In Africa, I think we are assuming so much.
I found the Brigadier General Felix Kwaite. The podium is here. Let's listen to you for the next 15 minutes.
Africa is the cradle of mankind. Man started from here. And two, when you look at the map of the world, you realize Africa is at the center. Right? So every continent broke away from Africa or drifted away from Africa through continental drifting. Then why is Africa behind? The answer lies in what we have. A good climate, rich natural resources. Because these are available, therefore, we don't task our minds. Now three, those words that I'm talking about become the source of our enemies coming here. Today as we speak, Africa is the only continent with natural resources. The rest are exhausted. And so, they must come here. The Chinese are here, the Russians, the Indians, the Turks, the French, the English, the Americans, the Belgians, the French. The Brazilians also have started coming. Africa now is the only continent that still produces organic food. The rest has been adulterated with chemicals in the name of boosting productivity and production.
Free your mind now.
So the point I'm making, Africa is meant to remain as backward as it is by the North. Do you understand my language? Meant to be. So they must make you remain poor and disorganized. So where do they start from? The mind. So the telephone you are carrying is actually an indoctrination tool. Each time you are seeing things on the screen, you are meant to believe that's how life is in the United States. So nice, so rosy. They have over 40 million people that live on the street, that sleep on the streets. I was in Washington in February 2018, and that's winter time. People are lying in the winter, just covered with the boxes. These paper boxes. You live with the comfort of the warmth of Africa that you are going for better life. Misery. So the reason why Africa remained behind, of course, first of all, slave trade. Secondly, colonialism. Colonialism disrupted the state formation in Africa. And so, at independence, every country you talk about inherited a headless state. In the political economy, we call it a decapitated state. Now, a decapitated state can't think. Are we together? No wonder the post-independence governments added no value. They simply propagated what they had inherited from the colonialists. Dictatorship. Expecting answers from the Muzungu and changing nothing of what they formed. Why? In many of the places, the rightful heirs to independence are not the ones who receive instruments of independence. So starting points are for the youth to be useful for security of the region is to understand who is the enemy.
So isn't that mindset change?
That's where I'm going, sir. Two is to appreciate who you are, yourself. Because unless you love yourself, you can't love your country.
Free your mind now.
If you don't love yourself, you can't love your neighbor. You can't give what you don't have. That's the starting point. So when you keep on thinking that somebody else has the solutions to our problems. We are daydreaming. The solutions lie with each one of us. 3. Those who inherited independence saw themselves as a conveyor belt. A conveyor belt. No wonder they can't get the source of solutions now. 6. The education system. The education you have been given, the education I was given, is to make us regurgitate what the white man wants us to regurgitate. So in the process, you will never think of anything outside the school system. And so, you enter senior 1, North America prairies. What are prairies? What are they growing? Wheat. Has a Mkonjo seen wheat? No. Has a Muchika in Kamari seen wheat? No. But that's the one you are studying in senior 1. When you are beginning to understand. Senior 2, where have you gone? Manchuria, China. You follow how we are being the best.
We are following.
Senior 2, where? China. You have moved from the prairies of North America, you have gone to China. Senior 3, the Rhinelands. Back now to Europe. Then in senior 4, where you have only 2 terms, you start Africa. Then you study East Africa. Then you study Uganda in a period of 3 months. So in short, you know nothing about your own continent, you know nothing about your region, but you are more informed about Manchuria, about the prairies and the pampas.
But I find even in the exam of senior 4, they do not bring the Uganda and stuff like that.
Exactly.
They will bring the other.
The point I'm making is that the emphasis is put elsewhere, deliberately.
And you leaders are aware of this.
Just a moment.
What are you doing about it?
Just a moment.
Okay.
You think the things I'm talking about I was taught in classroom
5 years later, maybe.
Mr. Speaker, you think the things I'm speaking I was taught by my school teacher?
No.
All I have had to do my own research. Because for me, I believe when you get annoyed, you reject your condition and look for a better way of improving on yourself. And the first problem was the security forces in Africa, illiterates. To join the army, they recruited only illiterates.
Yeah.
To join the police and the prisons, senior 4 leavers, up to drop out. So you have a security force that will only obey orders without questioning where you are going. So what happened? They turned on their own people. They turned on who? Their own people. Hence, government is seen as a stranger, as a foreign entity. I don't know that I'm communicating correctly.
Yeah, very well. We are very attentive.
So, for the youth to be useful to their continent, to be useful to your region, the starting point, appreciate who you are.
Yes.
That I am the solution to my problems.
Free your mind now.
So, appreciate who you are. 1, 2, disagree with your conditions. 3,
Disagree with your condition.
with your conditions you live in. 3, build bridges, not walls, with each other. Alliances of people with the same thinking. 4, seek knowledge. Seek knowledge. 5, love work. The Bible is very clear. I don't know for Quran. The Bible is very clear. If you don't work, you should not eat. But most importantly, work is self-fulfillment. When you work, that's when you raise your capabilities. But how will you raise your capabilities when the first thing in the morning you're on social media? So, ladies and gentlemen, me, I came to annoy you because I'm not looking for votes. neither am I looking for a bride to marry. That Africa's youth have the power to change Africa. Mine is not lament about Lumumba, but they can only change Africa after changing their mindset, after believing in themselves, believing they have the resources we need to change our lives, and 3, demanding of accountability from those that lead our governments.
As young intellectuals, you have all the space and the time to think radically and create change. Because nobody is going to make the change for you. Not us. That change, it is you who have to work for it.
Next of today, Honorable Alex asked for transport to come and start.
So there is a very big problem. And that really works on the theme we are discussing today. What did the Europeans do? Because the design of these Caucasians was simply to conquer, control, extort, and master the entire universe. And they created systems to do that. As I speak now, we are just victims, because even I'm using the language of the Caucasian to communicate to my own people. And we feel proud about it. Can you imagine there is no single white person in this place, but they have forced to speak English? And we are talking about Pan-African pyramid, Pan-African, free your mind. I have just been hearing that.
Free your mind now. Free your mind now.
English. So even the language, because the fact that you begin thinking through an external language, that in itself is a deficit in your mindset. So there is a crisis. But what disturbs me is up to now, we have not had scarcity of information and knowledge on what has made us stagnant as Africans. Every fact is there, all the knowledge is there. People have talked and talked and talked and talked. What is the problem? Why are we failing to be the owners of this continent? Why are we failing to be the owners of the resources that this continent possesses? What's the problem? Uganda is in a huge crisis as I speak today. We have a vision for the country. How many Ugandans know about the vision of the country?
I'm hearing from you now. You have a vision for the country?
How many Ugandans even understand this vision? When I look at you, I really look at you with sympathy, the young ones, because you are victims of distorted processes of human living. You can't think on your own. You can't innovate. You can't generate new knowledge. Because everywhere you're going, you are meeting different types of information. Self-styled pastors, prophets, all this nonsense. I hear some of you, even when you are studying, you think that it is because of those prophets that you have this knowledge. and even lack. Can you imagine that? And you're at university and you are so obsessed with superstition. How can you master your continent when you are just full of superstition? Your relationship with God is terribly
affected by superstition.
No. The fact that you have no confidence of linking direct with God,
You yourself.
that in itself is a big problem. You will always remain colonized.
Be part
I don't believe in all
Free
these
mind now.
mediators. I don't believe in anybody. I believe that I can link with God and I can talk to the God and I can say what I want and I can master my universe. I don't believe in all this nonsense that they see people in captivity.
free your mind now. Free your mind
So if
now.
you are spiritually enslaved, how dare you even begin talking about decolonization? Because you must have a weight image of God in you before even thinking of going to heaven. So you are already having a mental problem. Your mental capacity to think and master and find solutions is totally curtailed because you are feeling inferior.
The vehicle to take you to heaven is the white man.
That's what the white man says, and also the
And that's what the African man is believing.
and also the Muhammad.
Jesus is working.
So you find people fighting. How many people have to go to Mecca? How many have to go to Jerusalem? How many have, you find all Africans putting all their life into that. Hey,
Going to Mecca.
who bewitched us? So you first have to liberate your intellectual abilities in order to think of solutions for Africa. Short of that, we shall always be here and we say all these nice stories. And we just look victims. We look at the oppressors and we begin creating excuses. You become Mr. and Miss Excuses. Because your failure, you want to attribute it to other people. You are not going back to reflect and ask yourself, why? Why were you created? Why are you human? Why is it that there is diversity in this world? How come every society is looking at how to be superior and subjugate others? Everybody is in competition. The current war in Ukraine, in Europe, between the Russians and the Europeans and Americans is about dominance. It's about resources. It's about strategy.
Yes.
So you cannot be here in the continent and you have the biggest number of your population with huge mental deficits. You can't. What percentage do we have in Uganda that can create positive change for our country? Even those you think have had education, they are full of peasantry mentalities. You find a professor, but looking peasantry. Acting peasantry. But talking in the vocation and referring to the vocation knowledge basis. So for me, one of the things I did, because for me, I hate lamentations. That's one thing. I don't like putting myself in a very weak position, a very vulnerable position, as if you cannot do something about it. So So, my whole interest, because as a student, when I was at university, I was looking at these theories, the development theories. I was asking, how did these people begin thinking about these development theories? How special are they from me? What makes them so unique? Does it mean I cannot think? Can't I also come up with a theory? Can't I find a solution for my own people? And I rebelled. And when I rebelled, because I used to disagree with many of my lecturers. Of course, by the marks, they will give you lower marks. I don't care about that. But I told one of the lecturers, when I did my research paper, my thesis, and this lecturer disagreed with me, I told him one thing: you can only fail me on paper, but not here. My mental faculties are strong, and I'm going to prove you false. I'm going to begin a research center, a research institute, and I went and started it in Fort Worth at the age of 24. Why? If you don't invest in knowledge, you are a lost sheep. There is nothing we can do to decolonize, to remove the toxins, unless we acquire knowledge bases that are within our means and the capacity, and we can improve on them and then be globally competitive. And all the raw material for generating knowledge that can compete with the world, we have it here. The only thing we are lacking is the will. Is the will. There's this mentality. Everybody, when they get to power, the first thing they want to do is to run to the world masters, to build relationships with them, to make sure they are able to be in good books. So how will they allow you? How will World Bank allow Africa to unite? Why was Gaddafi killed? Uniting ourselves as black people. If you look at the critical mass that we need of the scientists in Africa, we have the number. But because all these scientists are scattered in smaller confines which these Europeans design, we cannot come up with rocket science. We cannot galvanize the resources, put the resources together as a continent, and be competitive so that we can also go to the moon and to the Mars. So imagine if all the scientists of Africa were put together. How much could we do to create a difference and liberate? Because don't think that all these Europeans that you see and Americans, that they are all knowledgeable and very, very well. No. This is a critical mass of scientists that create innovations and then change the world. The other people follow.
The Americans and the
majority, 80% they follow.
Hey.
The only thing is they give them education such that they can master and utilize the science.
So they have also created think tanks for them.
Of course, all these nations have had the foundation and basis of think tanking. There is no nation that can survive without think tanks. The soul of think tanking here in Uganda, I'm just thinking here. But when I go to universities, it is all about associations. Kobazamogo Association, Toro Association, Chigezi, Mayatoli, and then they are all just talking about our people are all that nonsense. This is nobody thinking.
Free your mind now.
So how are we going? Because you are the solution. The engine is here in the brain. Now, if your brain is curtailed and you are in an intellectual freedom environment and you are not applying that intellectualism for the purpose of liberating a black person, and you are only preoccupied with religion, with the tribe, with all that
Witchcraft.
because you want it to be called witchcraft. That's why we were taught.
Well, this is what?
So, can we think differently? Me, I believe. Yes, master the science. The Chinese did it, they are now conquering the world. They first disengaged. They got rid of all these external influences. Because no external information is meant for your own good. It is meant for their own good, not yours.
Free your mind now. Be free your mind now.
Why do we hate each other? Why do you hate yourself? Why do you hate your color? Why do you downlook yourself? The moment majority of our people have been made to see they are the poorest, poverty, disease, ignorance, those definitions, those are calculated definitions that make you intellectually dwarfed. Because right from the beginning, you are just thinking from the negative point. You are growing up as a child from a negative point, not from the positive. So this is something that I'm trying to say, that until we liberate ourselves intellectually, we are just wasting our time. Even those I see who try to be so religious and holy, look at their actions. Hypocrisy, self-denial. So why do you put yourself, you young intellectuals, why do you put yourself in that situation? Why can't you fight that? So this Pan-Africanism is just meant to inculcate that spirit in you of inner belief, confidence, and then you should be in position to learn the tools that can enable you research, collect data, know, and then act. But a majority of Africans, they are moved by emotions. Look at our campaigns. Look at our campaigns. Can you go and talk Pan-Africanism and you win an election? This democracy which they have extended, do you know how much cost it has had and the toll on us?
Democracy is costly.
Of course, unless you have not been moving. So imagine a fella who is in a drunkard has got to determine who becomes a member of parliament.
So he's your boss.
Has nothing to do with policies, issues of the global dynamics, macroeconomic policies. So why do people elect leaders? So these Europeans, with their designs, they set up systems that are directly linked with their development and culture and deposit it on us, and then they think we are going to walk at the same level. That's hoodwink.
Hey.
So you just become these characters who just are there for the show when you are not real.
Hey.
Free your mind now.
That's why I've liked Rwanda. I've been in Rwanda and studied their system. They just did their homemade democracy. The members of parliament in Rwanda, they don't suffer with voters. The parties just appoint them. And nobody has to call you for school fees, call you for... You can imagine that. You know, at this level, you are supposed to be at the policy level of the country. You are supposed to think for the country, make laws. And all you are preoccupied with are petty demands. And then you think that you are going to fight decolonization, this colonization, imperialism. When is the time for African intellectuals to sit and think without all these encumbrances? You cannot think, innovate, come up with new technologies without having space that allows you that time and environment to do so.
You're in various, attending school fees demands.
So you are a professor, but you are having petty demands because the whole tribe knows our son became a professor, so he has to help us. When will this professor begin innovating? When you are chasing daily bread, you are running around every day to make the ends meet. You are worried about even the school fees of your children. So when will you? You see, when we talk about think tanks, we are talking about, if you go in history, you are going to find that the world thinkers, those first thinkers, they were not people who were married. They had no families. Their whole concentration was about innovations, knowledge. You go to bed thinking about knowledge, you have no wife disturbing you. You are only thinking about that discovery that you must make. But how many Africans can do that? That's why I was telling many of our priests. I was telling them, you are not married, you are here, you made vows. What is making you fight to think for us? It's not just about taking us to heaven. You are now free. You must innovate. Use that time. So I feel that this topic, first of all, it is so broad. Yes, it has given us general knowledge. But I think we need to begin looking at our internal arrangements that we must solve in order to think for Africa. You cannot think about Africa when actually, as a country, we are torn apart in those small little tribes and almost killing each other over tribes. Tell me of these political parties that we have. What ideology do they possess? Then this colonial democratization. Yes. But now you have Pan-Africanism, you have nationalism. It's powerful. It means there is space where we can think and correct. Have serious ideology. So what is the ideology of Africa? You tell me. So there are issues that we must make. But remember, the fundamental historical bottlenecks that were well calculated and designed. They need serious, determined people with passion and training to change. So when you talk about using force to unite Africa, I don't know from how that can be achieved. Of course, that is a good wish. We can talk of using force, but now which power?
Wishful thinking.
Which power? The only man who had reached somewhere was Gaddafi. And he was destroyed. Now show me an equivalent of Gaddafi now.
So that we think about that.
You show me. So we are in a crisis. We have a crisis of human capital. When you are talking of human capital, you're talking about the thinkers. Thinking people. You see, thinking human beings is one of the rare commodities that we have in Africa. And the few thinkers that we have, they are all stolen. They are given money and taken to America and Europe. So we do not have even a chance. The only ones that are left, they are the lamenters, like Lumumba, Professor, who has to run around and talk of all these problems, and it becomes terrible. Me, I am sick. I'm sick of listening to that kind of stuff. Why can't we fix things? What makes us fail to fix? Why? Because the state, when these Caucasians design the state is an apparatus that is meant to create change or start. Now, for the African elite were convinced to lead a lifestyle of the Europeans. To be able to sustain that lifestyle of Europeans, you need a lot of money. And this means that given the economies of our continent, to sustain these African elites, they can only be sustained when they become corrupt. So the state becomes a tool for the few elites to control the majority. And now when you have these elites who are comfortable with the wealth they are making out of the suffering of the majority, there is no way how they can think of uniting Africa or how they can think of liberating Africa. They will always remain in that comfort mode until another comes and the status quo remains.
What are the youth doing? But to go back to the real question is, are we free? We are not. Mr. Kasu discussed that one very well. We are not. We are under neo-colonialism. We are under neo-imperialism. Are we aware? I don't know, but I'm going to show you how. Just briefly. Look at the composition of wealth in Africa and how much we donate to the world. I disagree with himself on a number of things, but I agree with him on one thing. He says that what we export as raw materials, we are actually giving donations to the world, to the Western world. You give your coffee, you give your cotton to someone to make you a shirt, and then sells you $15 when you sold that cotton or whatever at $1. We are the donors, but we don't know. And much of these resources are coming from Africa. That we are more having what we call a comparative advantage in economics, and that is agriculture as Africans. But how much are we using it? Ask Kashaya here, who is going to come after me maybe. How much of the national budget in Uganda is put in agriculture? You may cry, because State House gets more. I'm here.
Yesterday they asked for another supplementary budget.
Which is about 600 billion. Yeah, now you can imagine, we are Ugandans. I mean, it was by the way, I agree with him, and I will come to that. We are Ugandans who don't even know how much we are worth. Because a national budget doesn't favor us. Me, I was on coffee and cow.
When you say it doesn't favor you,
doesn't favor
when it is, you are the one who elected the president.
I'm coming on that.
The budget is to help the president and do his job.
Okay.
So what do you mean?
Now, we have looked at what makes Africa Africa. One, when I was in the School of Economics before I did law at Makerere, was our comparative advantage, agriculture. And I've just told Kashia here, the professor here, our national budget doesn't favor us, the farmers. Then the farmer have many acres of land, I try to dig, though sometimes things go bad. You get it? But I value agriculture. But
how many of the young people here, before you blame the president, you will blame him. Actually, do agriculture. People in Africa who have actually showed you that they can make drugs for HIV. Research. Even cancer. COVID, Dr. Is it Lubago? COVID, our friend, the episode man. What happens to Africans that come up with research? They are such on, they are pursued by their own governments because their own governments are under armpits of colonialism and neo-colonialism.
How can the young people contribute towards the liberation of Africa? I'm speaking mainly to the youth. I've heard very well from these wise, intelligent men of Africa. But I start with a quote which says, who pays the piper always dictates the tune, right? Who pays the piper always dictates the tune. Yes. Now, and I love another quote from one of the professors here who said that our center of locus, it's externalized, right? Our youth have an external locus of identity. I was at the airport and I felt like tears flowing into my eyes. Thousands and thousands of young people are being ferried into modern day slavery into abroad countries, UAE, and they are going on a guise of getting money because we have one mentality. Once you see a Mzungu here, what comes into your mind? How do I get connected with this Mzungu? He's going to make me successful. How do I get a link? Yet, without no offense, most of them are incapable bodies that have been brought in Africa to be trained. And for us, we think they are the gateways to our success. I want to speak about the continuous indoctrination, manipulation, and mind entrapment of the mindset and the whole brain of our young people and we, the young generation. Because if we are not told about this, and I am so much happy that the great men here are really bringing this out, and I love the history, the spirituality, connectivity, how you're bringing in all this, and it really continues to give us the power to identify ourselves. But if we do not have these discussions from these great men, and they are being heard by very many people, and we continue to consume that nonsensical, irrelevant information, journalistic articles, because I tell people, they are the trendsetters, and we accept they are the trendsetters. Whatever they set abroad, they put on their news, the media channels, they put on everything. They want to make you believe that Ukraine is having a lot of refugees. There are people killing, people are doing what? They want to make you believe everything. Someone tells you, if you see what Western media portrays, when it comes to Mexico and all that, there is not there are drug addicts, cartels and all. But if you go to Mexico, it's one of the most peaceful cities. I want to comment by saying, if we do not attack, if we do not challenge the archaic system of the colonialism, which has been fully emboldened in the education system, that continuously entraps our minds to think that we are going to be teams or vessels of knowledge without any practical skills. Africa is still having a very long way. We need to challenge the education system. We need to challenge whatever we feed into the mindsets of the young people, for they are the gateways to liberation of Africa.
As Africans, we need to be able to see what we are not doing if we want to liberate Africa, especially with the young people. We just need to ensure that in the way we do, in the way we act, we are behaving in a way that even someone who feels that they can't speak, they can't communicate, can stand here and say something. Why are women behind? Why are they not in front? Yes. So if you are seated here, what shows that you're an African? So if you see me, my hairstyle, the way I decided to do it, I have some bangles on me, these earrings, they're made with African, So I may have
no lipsticks, no
it's part of like self-care, because our grandmothers used to pierce their ears, they used to use charcoal. So let us not say this is not African. These are things that our grandmothers used to do, but we are just so scared of doing them.